we're praying for her. She's had a liver transplant, kidney transplant.
Good afternoon and welcome to our first meeting of June. Second time we met in person, I think, since the pandemic. Hope everybody's doing well who's listening to us today, and we've got a few people in the audience, people on our team, and so forth. Our invocation tonight would be led by Councilman Kyle Newton. The respectful flag will be done by Councilman Don Chapman. Please rise.
Let's pray. Father, we come to you tonight as a body, asking for your guidance. Now more than ever, we seek your grace as we continue to nurture the bonds of our community. Thank you for the peaceful gathering of our citizens last week as we opened up a new dialogue. Thank you for the leadership of many of our elected officials, administrative leaders, and Anderson Police Department. We thank you for the countless citizen and ministerial leaders who brought people from all corners of our city together to show unity and seek change. We ask that you continue to bless us in these endeavors, and that decisions we make here tonight and all other nights bettering our community. We ask these things in your name.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The minutes of our May 20th meeting have been distributed. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes? Not hearing any. Do I have a motion to approve? First by Mr. John Roberts, a second by Dr. Thompson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes of May 20th pass unanimously. We have several items of old business, and they, by and large, refer to the Planning Commission. I understand that item 1, which is a request consideration of an ordinance to rezone 608 Boulevard from R15 Single Family Residential to NC Neighborhood Commercial. That applicant has asked for that consideration to be withdrawn. McEwen?
Yes, sir. Continued on A1, and just as a reminder, because it's been a little bit since some of these items have been referred from this body to the Planning Commission. Agenda items A1 through A10, they are part of our growth plan, strategic growth plan for the development of our city, continued development of our city. Items A1 through 8A were previously referred to the Planning Commission on the March 23rd meeting when we were in person. And items A9 through A10 were referred by council May the 20th. The Planning Commission held their meeting on June the 2nd and passed those items, and they are now before you on first reading under old business. Maurice McKenzie, our Planning and Development Director, will go through each of the items and sync, and we can vote on each one separately. So,
thank you, sir.
Mr. Maurice.
Hey, thank you. Yeah, there are several items here, and the city manager mentioned many of these have common themes with our annexations and growth. The first one, item A2, is consideration of an ordinance to annex zone 3710 Clinton Boulevard to DC General Commercial, and pursuant to a previously recorded water and sewer service agreement, restrictive covenant that was signed by the original property owner. We're requesting to annex this property now, and it's well within our boundaries for city services. Right now, this is developed as an urgent care clinic. It was formerly the Payless Shoe Store, if you may be more familiar with that. It's now urgent care clinic, and we're requesting to put a GC zoning classification on the property. GC is very consistent with what you see along Clemson Boulevard. So we do recommend approval of it. As Mr. McEwen mentioned, this did go before Planning Commission last week on June 2nd, and they recommended approval of this one.
Thank you, sir. Are there any comments, questions?
Quick question. It doesn't really relate. It does relate, but it doesn't have anything to do with this particular property. But I know at one point we were going to go back, and as things have changed over the course of time, making sure our zoning classifications is current throughout the city with what the changing environment in the city has been, and I know that was going to be in the works, to take a look at that, and I guess saying that, thinking about that plan that we're working on or getting ready to work on, would this still be consistent with that plan, or do you think it wouldn't be?
Yes, this zoning classification is very consistent with what you see along an urban commercial corridor. And yeah, you're right. We have been having discussions to revise several documents or planning documents, zoning ordinance, comprehensive plan. So we're looking to do that in the future. But generally speaking, what you see with general commercial is very typical of what is developed along Clemson Boulevard.
Mr. Roberts?
Maurice, there are several adjacent properties not in this zoning request or annexation request, but do we have water sewer agreements with those?
Most likely not, Mr. Roberts. I'll have to double check, but I would say the ones that are contiguous to the city in this area that we're not pursuing annexation on, we do not have the covenants, because this would be a good opportunity to go before those.
Well, in my opinion, this is a no-brainer, and I move that we move forward with this annexation and rezoning.
Well, first by Mr. Jeff Roberts, a second by Mr. Kyle Newton. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. Our next item, item 8.3, is request consideration of an ordinance to annex and zone 153 Civic Center Boulevard to RM18 multifamily residential. McKenzie.
Yes, sir. Again, there's a previously recorded water and sewer service agreement, restricted covenant for this particular piece of property, and we are now requesting to annex 153 Civic Center Boulevard, and this is Station 153, which is a multifamily apartment complex, and we are requesting to place a zoning of RM18 multifamily residential on this property. That will make it consistent with the development pattern and the density of this development. So again, this is an apartment complex. We're requesting to annex it. Planning Commission did consider this last week as well, and they also recommended approval.
Thank you. Questions, comments? Ms. Roberts?
Mr. McKenzie, everything around this is zoned general commercial. Is this an appropriate and correct zoning to make that transition from GC to RM18 and then right behind it are residential?
That's correct. We could technically zone this GC general commercial. That would allow multifamily development, but in keeping with what you see behind it, as you mentioned, there is residential behind it, so we saw that as a natural trickle down of zoning.
Whereas GC would be too
It would just
broad.
it could allow, say for instance, if the property was redeveloped, it could be developed as something more intensive in terms of zoning is concerned.
Thank you.
Good question. Any other questions?
Motion to approve.
I have a first by Kyle Newton, second by Mr. John Roberts. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? That passes unanimously on the first reading. Our next item is request consideration of an ordinance to annex and zone Henry Station subdivision to R5 single-family residential. Ms. McKenzie?
Again, another recorded water and sewer service agreement, restricted covenant for this property. It was signed by the developer prior to construction of the subdivision. This is Hembry Station subdivision, and it has 87 lots. About 60 or maybe a couple more have been developed or are under development. And the lots are less than 10,000 square feet in size, so we are recommending an R5 zoning classification for this subdivision, and that will make it consistent with the development pattern. And again, this is also within our boundaries for the provision of city services, and we're working with Public Works right now because this one's a little bit different because it's a residential subdivision, garbage pickup, things of that nature. So we're working with them and notifying residents what the next steps will be once we get to that point. But again, the Planning Commission heard this last week, recommended approval.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Chapman?
Mr. McKenzie, with this one being a little bit different, being residential development already developed, do we send out, I guess, notifications to all the residents, and so they're aware that if they have a trash service, they need to stop that, and like you said, pick up the new service, and then there's other, I guess, showing them kind of some of the savings that is, you know, that will receive from city services.
That's correct. We notified them multiple times because this was initially, if you remember, planned to go before Planning Commission and Council back in April, but because of the crisis we had to alter our schedule. But we notified them back in March. We sent another letter reminding them of the process coming up, so they were fully aware of, you know, the next steps. We received many phone calls from the residents just asking, you know, what does this mean as far as what services are they going to get? We actually ran some cost-benefit analysis for many of the property owners. The numbers look really good. Some people actually can save money by being inside the city. So they were very pleased with that. We had, you know, very little concern. Most people were very happy. We had a couple people show up at the Planning Commission last week. They were satisfied. So we were pleasantly surprised because, as you said, this is a previously developed subdivision. I've been here for a few years, and we've never annexed a developed subdivision before, so it's different.
Thank you.
Good question. Mr. Roberts, Jeff Roberts.
I obviously read all this because I've got so many questions. I was also here at the Planning Commission meeting on the 2nd, and there were 2 residents here. And during that meeting, the water issue came up. They'll receive city water rates, but the sewer, does it remain under county sewer?
That's correct.
So we will have
That's correct.
nothing to do with sewer.
Right. And the concern that you heard at the meeting too, they had something we didn't know about in the planning department, but they're paying, I think, $1.20 per month for fire hydrants, things like that. We confirmed with our utilities department, those charges will disappear once it's annexed.
I'll add in, Mr. Roberts, that when we do annex, just like we annexed the Kmart site, formerly the Kmart site that's since been developed out commercially, that was actually county sewer. And we have the option within so many days, like I think it's 90 days, to actually, with the county, it's an agreement to be able to essentially buy out the sewer service. I'll take a look at that on that subdivision. The county's very agreeable to that, just because it's the consistency of services, and they just had to provide service first because it wasn't there. So I'll take a look at that and get you.
Doesn't it make better sense to have both?
Yes, sir. In that ways, the services are standard across, and we've done that in other areas in that vicinity. So I'll take a look at that for you. Thank you.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, we still, even though it's county sewer, we still bill for it, correct? Or do we in that area?
We do, yes. We still bill for the county sewer on our water bill, but if we give them the better rates, there would be a cost of us buying them out. And we still treat the sewer because, it's we're the 2 treatment plants that we receive it at. So we're still a customer indirectly. So I'm sorry, they're still a customer of ours indirectly.
We always get
So the flip side of that, since, we have so many days to opt to buy them out, for sewer, if the property's in the county and we're providing water to them currently, but, it's in the county, do they have an option to buy our water out, make it consistent with them?
No, they do not.
So it's just one, either we do, but they don't.
That's correct.
Any other questions, comments?
Make a motion to approve.
First by Mr. John Roberts, second by Mr. Lockridge. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously on the first reading. The next item, item A5, request consideration of an ordinance to annex in Zone 103 Allison Circle, Walden Oats Apartments to R18 multifamily residential. You're up again, Mr. McKenzie.
Thank you. Again, another recorded agreement and restrictive covenant on this particular piece of property, and we're requesting to annex this as well. This too is in our boundaries for provision of city services. This is Walden Oaks Apartments, multifamily complex. Similar to the other apartment complex we just talked about a moment ago, RMA residential, we see as the appropriate zoning classification to place on this particular piece of property. The commission heard this last week as well, and they did recommend approval.
Thank you, sir. Comments, questions?
Motion to approve.
First by Mr. Kyle Newton,
Second.
second by Mr. Don Chapman. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? That passes unanimously on the first reading. Our next item is request consideration of an ordinance to annex and zone 10.66 acres known as Tract 1 at 1225 Salem Church Road to RM 18 multifamily residential. Ms. McKenzie?
This actually kind of ties into the previous one. This piece of property was part of a larger parcel of land that is now Walden Oaks Apartments. So an agreement was signed for this particular piece of property. It has not been developed, but it has been subdivided. Therefore, we're bringing this to you separately. But we wanted to break it down like this. And again, it's over 10 acres. It's vacant property. It has street frontage along Salem Church Road. Because of the development pattern adjacent to it with Walden Oaks Apartments, we're recommending RM 18 multifamily residential zoning on this as well. And again, the Planning Commission heard this and recommended approval.
Thank you. Questions, comments? Same ownership of the land?
Yes.
Make a motion, we accept it as presented.
Have a first by Mr. Chapman,
Second.
second by Dr. Thompson.
I do have a quick question, Mayor. Mr. McKenzie, do we have to approve things in a certain order to maintain, or they had to be contiguous, is that correct?
That's correct. Yes, it's kind of a domino effect in a couple of instances. So tell me I did it right. I'll make sure we did this.
Good question. Any other questions? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? That passes unanimously also. Our next item is request consideration of an ordinance to annex and zone 100 Hudson Circle, the Hamptons Apartments to RM 18 multifamily residential. Ms.
Yes.
McKenzie?
Another recorded water sewer service agreement, restrictive covenant on this particular piece of property. And we're requesting to annex this. It too is within our boundaries for provision of city services. This apartment complex, known as the Hamptons, would, the best and most appropriate zoning classification for it would be RM 18 multifamily residential as well. And we do recommend approval of it. Planning Commission heard it last week and recommended approval as well.
Thank you. Questions, comments?
I move approval.
We have a first by Dr. Thompson,
Second.
second by Mr. Newton. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? That passes unanimously on the first reading. Item number 8. Request consideration of an ordinance to annex and zone 1104 Salem Church Road to GC General Commercial.
Yes, sir. As you can see on your map, this is adjacent to the Hamptons, the property we just discussed. And again, another restrictive covenant signed for this particular piece of property. It's within our boundaries for the provision of city services. It's a plumbing supply company, so we're recommending a zoning of GC General Commercial for that because it is consistent with the particular use on the site. So we recommend approval of it as GC General Commercial. Planning Commission considered it. They recommend approval of it as well.
Thank you. Questions, comments? Mr. Roberts?
Mr. McKenzie, I'm just curious, because of this being a business, have you had any input from owners, ProSource,
We did.
in favor or?
We did have a conversation with the property owner a week or two ago about it. Actually, our city planner did, and just discussed with him what it's meant to be inside the city, what the taxes would be. But no objections.
Okay. Mayor, I move that we annex and zone this parcel.
First by Mr. Jeff Roberts.
Second.
Second by Mr. Lockridge. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Two more. The first one, number 9, is request consideration of an ordinance to annex and zone to PDD Plan Development District's approximately 25 acres located at 1309 Old Williamson Road to annex and zone to R15, single-family residential. 1.1 acres located at 1309 Old Williamson Road and to rezone an adjacent 8.29 acre parcel from RM10, multifamily residential, to a PDD, which is a Planned Development District.
Definitely a mouthful and a lot of moving parts to this particular one, but if you look at your map that's attached to it and drawings, you get a kind of plan development district document, you can make more sense of it, but we're talking about the property that's labeled as College Park. And the applicant proposes to annex portions of the property. There's a piece of property that's already inside the city. They wish to rezone that as well to create a planned mixed-use residential development. And they're breaking it down into 3 tracts. Now, there is a 1.1 acre parcel of land with a house on it. They wish to annex that as well, but it will not be part of the PDD. So that's one piece that is to be kept separate, although it is being annexed. But just
Not part of this,
I'm sorry?
but not part of this. It's going to come at a later time.
That's coming in now as R15, single-family residential. It's just not going to come in as the planned development district. So we're requesting that 1.1 acres to be R15 and the remaining property to be PDD. And attached to your, in your package, you will see a PDD document which governs really the zoning for this particular piece of property. And we'll go over that in a moment, but we can get into specifics as well as we go through this. But the total development will consist of about 159 lots or units, and it will not exceed 192. And again, you can see more details in the document that governs the development standards, setbacks, density, parking, things like that. And just to touch on each of the tracts, Tract A or Parcel A is 7.59 acres, and it is proposed to be constructed with single-family detached dwellings. 40 lots are proposed, and dwellings will be a minimum of 1,800 square feet, and lot sizes will average just under 5,100 square feet. And you can see in that document there are more specifics relating to this that we can touch on. Tract B is 8.29 acres. That's already inside the city. It was previously being constructed as townhomes for College Park, and 47 exist out there now, and they want to continue that development pattern and ultimately have 72 total units on the site, and also construct a leasing office / house on the property as well. Tract C is the largest of the parcels. It's 16.4 acres. Currently, they're requesting to develop single-family residential detached houses on it. Now, if market conditions change, they may come back to us to discuss multifamily units or a mixture of single-family and multifamily. That's yet to be determined. But at the current time, they're proposing single-family units and not to exceed 80 lots. And very similar to Tract A, houses being a minimum of 1,800 square feet. Lot average is about 5,100 square feet. And we can go into more details with that in a moment. And also the engineer who's representing the applicant is here tonight as well, so he can help answer questions if you have some. But Planning Commission did consider this at their June 2nd meeting. They recommended approval. Now, this is the first stage in this after the, you have general drawings in your packet now, but once everything is approved, final drawings must go before our city Planning Commission for subdivision plat approval, to our engineering department for all those specifics.
That is a mouthful. I'm sure it generated questions at the Planning Commission level, I would assume. I'll open it up for questions here for council. Mayor Pro Tem.
Maurice, I noticed, of course, like I think Kyle was alluding to, everything must be contiguous to get zoned in. I know if you look at, you got the little parcel up near Willow Bend, and then you got the other one down here in the middle of the 2 college parks that's in green, looks like a house. Those are, all those that are abutting what we're annexing in, are those not, do we not have service agreements on those as well?
Not on any everything in white. And like you said, you're correct. You see Willow Bend on the map in blue. We'll be discussing that next, but we needed to discuss this first so we can become contiguous to it.
But, and the one kind of like in the middle of the page in between the two college parks down there, that's that house.
That's a house. We don't have an agreement on that.
And those other ones that are contiguous, all those other lots near Trammell Road that possibly could be contiguous.
We don't have agreements on
None of
those.
those as
No,
well.
sir.
Yes, Mayor.
Ms. Chapman?
Based on what Councilman Stewart said earlier, you know, we were talking about revising and updating the ordinances and the plan unit development standards and some other things like that. But one of the things that we had talked about with previous subdivisions is trying to increase the minimum lot size. And this one's, you know, just under 5,100 square feet. Where are we in that process? Because I thought the minimum, I thought we discussed it was going to be like 55 or 6,000 or something like that.
That's one thing we've discussed, and we haven't obviously approved a new zoning ordinance with those standards. Now, keep in mind, this is a planned development district, so this is basically the zoning for this parcel of land. So it's almost like you create your own zoning. So a lot of times this could be different than what you see in your conventional zoning. But you're right, there have been discussions about perhaps increasing the minimum lot sizes in our zoning ordinance. Right now, our smallest lot you can have for a single-family residential is 5,000 square feet. There was some discussion to possibly increase that at some point. Even if we did increase it to 5,000 or 6,000 or 7,000 square feet, somebody could still come in and request a planned development district and request their specific density and lot sizes.
But we would recommend what our minimum lot size would be.
You could, but it's not required.
Okay.
Mr. Roberts?
I am also concerned about lot size and density, and more in particular, 5-foot side yard setbacks. 5-foot side yard setbacks. This is 5 feet. Now, granted, each one would have 5 feet, so that's 10 feet. So that is definitely a concern. I think it's too close, too dense. We also had the situation come up when we looked at the subdivision going in at Blakely and Glenwood. Times of days when you have all these people trying to get out and go to work or school or whatever, you're going to have literally, potentially 100 people or more trying to get out all at once. And two things arise out of that. We provided for left and right exits out of Glenwood and Blakely subdivision for that very reason. Give more ways to get out of it. And another concern of mine is the sight distance coming out of parcel A. I think the speed limit right through there is 35. And I'm familiar with that road. And I know people generally exceed that amount. And you've got that entrance exit right there on parcel A. And I just wonder if the engineer could speak to if he has contacted DOT about that. Because there are sight distances that will either allow you or not allow you to have that entrance. So that's another concern. And I wish there were some way, the last thing I have, I wish there was some way that we could eliminate these long, dead-end cul-de-sac developments. I wish there's some way you could loop it around the back, loop it around the middle, some way. Because you've got that long, straight road, and you know what happens there too. People, they pick up speed, they can see the other end, and they go for it. So, you know, this is probably the only way they saw to be able to get that road in there. But if there's any way to loop that in the middle, around the back, I just see that as being a positive. Because if you had people parking on both sides of the street or in some awkward way, and you had to have, that's your only way in and out. Fire truck, whatever, police, fire, ambulance. at least you could have an alternate way in or out. So I would like to see those 4 things addressed.
I was
before it
counting
before it
3.
comes back to us.
Slipped one in. 4?
5-foot setbacks.
I'm just teasing. 5 foot, okay, I left 3. I will say, you know, the thing that, and I guess me and Rick, we drive that, and I go that way every day when I'm going to my state farm agency. We did change the speed limit. The speed limits went from, I'm not mistaken, 35 to 25? Yeah. And, you know, and I go that way a lot. And I think the thing that, the time of day, traffic, people coming in, I don't see it just because probably you have staggered times at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. I hadn't really, have you noticed
Not really.
anything more on Blakely?
I've been out there around 7 in the morning.
Yeah, I
I've-
slow down a little bit more often than I used to.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think just the speed and the time of day. Now, granted, this built out is much bigger than
Yeah,
that one. Well, and then we've got the other issue, the other development on the other side of it. But I don't know. Jeff had questions. I know our engineer is here, so.
Can I, Mr. Mayor, can I add something to what Jeff had mentioned? Because something I just realized, it's very faint, but it appears that track B is going to connect to track A, which those cars then are going to dump out into A. Is it going to also connect on over to C?
Not according to this plan. The engineer may be able to describe that a little bit more, but you are correct. Right now, the track B has a gated entrance. That's going to be moved to that connecting road. That's what the proposal is, to connect to.
So all of track B is going to connect to track A.
Unless the engineer tells me otherwise, that's what we see.
You see?
Also, excuse me, the gate being moved interior now prevents any cross flow from A to C. If it's gated, you can't use the other entrance. Unless that gate were moved on up into the current development. So now that prevents any cross flow with that gate being.
Would you like me to ask? This is Paul Harris.
Before it comes back to us, I would like to see these addressed, because I don't want it to come back and then I'm in favor of this development. I think it needs to be, these items, and maybe in the future, try to eliminate these coming up like this, but those 4 items that I mentioned, I'd like to have addressed before it comes back.
Let's do this.
Second reading.
Yeah, that's fair. Why don't we, obviously, we're notating the questions, and can we empower Maurice and his team to talk to the developer engineer before it comes back to us? That sound fair? Everybody? We good? Okay. But I don't want to stop questions dying.
Well, I didn't know, since the engineer's here, if we wanted to hear from him now, because that may pose some additional questions that may make us more comfortable with it.
I'm good either way. Was hearing another way, but either way you want to do it.
I think since he's here, it might eliminate some of the questions that we've got right now.
I just heard something different from Jeff.
Oh,
Please.
And his name again?
Paul Harrison, Blue Water Engineer.
Come on down, Paul.
Yes, sir. Please
Yeah. You're on TV.
I lost my voice this weekend. My name is Paul Harrison. I work with Blue Water Civil Design. My address is 718 Lowndes Hill Road, Greenville, 29609. I tried to jot those down as quickly as possible, so I hope I got everything. But first, I want to talk about the councilman's comments about site distance. The current road which serves College Park is in that same location. So their current drive is already there. It serves parcels, it currently serves the College Park multifamily townhomes, but it would serve, in the future, it would serve parcel B and parcel A as shown on the rezone. So the only thing that we would do different there is, currently that road, College Park Drive, comes in exactly where it's shown on our plan, but it comes in and basically does a hard left into the, and I think their gate is closer to Old Williamston Road. We would propose to move that gate back to, so that College Park would remain private. Those roads, those driveways would be private. And then the only two proposed public roads would serve parcel A and parcel C, which are the two single-family detached sections. We will definitely be checking site distance, and keep in mind too, we have to go through, these are state-maintained roads, so we have to get an encroachment permit from the state. And one of the main things that we have to address is site distance. We'll probably have to do, I'm 99% sure we're gonna have to do a traffic impact study for DOT for their files when we go through that encroachment permit process. So the other driveway on Old Williamston serving parcel C, that might have been a little unclear, but currently that intersection, you have Trammell Road basically coming in and doing an abrupt 90, and you already have a intersection already there. What we're proposing there is to clean that intersection up and to terminate Trammell Road in a cul-de-sac road and work with those homeowners we've already been in talks with them about terminating that road and eliminating that 90-degree intersection. So where both of our driveways shown, we currently feel like we have the site distance, and even if we needed to do some clearing across that 1.1 acre parcel, we could even we could actually put a site triangle easement across that property that would prohibit anyone in the future from coming in and planting a tree or an obstruction that would prevent our line of sight as you're looking, I guess, as you're looking east along Old Williamston trying to turn out of the development. If there's concerns about traffic in peak hours, peak AM hours, peak PM hours, when the majority of your traffic is at a high level, we're not opposed to widening out both of our entrances and providing a one-way in, a left out, and a right out. Just provide a little bit of stacking for both of our driveways. We're not opposed to doing that, and we could incorporate that into the final development plans. But from the site distance and getting specific on that, I can assure you that will definitely be handled at the encroachment permit level by DOT. And DOT basically has zero tolerance for site distance. So there is really no waiver you can get for site distance. You either have it or you don't, or you got to get it somehow. So I don't know if that clarifies the site distance. On the side setbacks, I understand that, and it's something that comes up in all of these neighborhoods. We do a tremendous amount of neighborhoods we've done a tremendous amount of neighborhoods over the last 10, 15 years. One thing that we're seeing now is smaller lots, smaller houses, and the reason being is because that's the market. That's the prime market. That's these starter homes, smaller lots, smaller yards, less maintenance, and I don't do a lot of subdivisions that are, a quarter of an acre, or half-acre lots anymore. I don't do a lot of those because that's not what the market that's selling right now at this point in time. I did talk with Maurice a little bit about the side setbacks and talk about drainage in between the houses and, what happens if somebody comes in and puts an HVAC unit on the side of the house. Well, what's that going to look like? You're trying to get a swell, you got 10 feet in between houses, but a lot of times why we like to have that side setback so narrow is because it doesn't mean that our actual product's going to be from building setback to building setback. we have to account for 2 and 3 foot overhangs in the roof, which we like to keep those inside a lot of municipalities require that those overhangs be inside the setback as well. So in theory, it doesn't mean that we're gonna have houses 10 feet apart from party wall to party wall. They will most likely be 12 to 13 feet apart or 14 feet apart. But I talked to Maurice about maybe restricting HVAC units. Since this is a PDD document, we can put specific restrictions in the ordinance to confine HVAC units to the rear of the house, so that doesn't become a problem. And I think that's a great idea, because we don't want them on the side of the house anyway, constricting our swales in and around the lots. We talked about, pipe and roof drainage. In the event where we can take roof water and we can pipe those directly to proposed storm drainage, I think that's a good thing too. And I think we need to try to do that everywhere we can. The side setback thing, though, is tough for us, just to go in and set a side setback of 7.5 or 10 feet. I'm not saying that the city of Anderson is Greenville County or Spartanburg County or whatever, but I will say that those municipalities, it's typical and standard to have 5-foot side yard setbacks. Typical is 20-foot front setback, 10-foot rear setback. So it's not something that we're trying to request in a PDD to get around something. Those are typical standards that we're used to seeing. The dead-end cul-de-sacs is a tough one, because in theory, parcel B is a rental product. It's currently a rental product, and they want to keep it a rental product. So we're trying to keep parcel B, in essence, from vehicular traffic separate from each other. So parcel B would use the same drive, would use College Park Drive, but the gate would just be relocated to just before you turn into parcel B. And we would like to keep that private. That's just because that's the way it was currently set up and designed, and that's the way it's currently operating right now. But with full intentions of parcel A and parcel C being 2 separate products, that we could develop maybe simultaneously and have a different product on parcel A or C in the event that the market trends that way. We did want to provide pedestrian access between all the parcels, but the developer that I'm working for, and I can't make all the, I might not be able to answer a lot of these questions, but I was just directed to set those up to keep those separate right now for vehicular cross access. We did provide an emergency access from parcel C to parcel B in the event that, emergency vehicles or whatever, fire trucks, whatever, needed to have another means of getting into parcel B. And we did provide that from parcel C to parcel B.
Is that the pink shaded?
That's the pink shaded area. So we envision that being, we've done this a lot. That's basically a hidden emergency access drive where we'd go in and we'd put it basically looks like a honeycomb paver, and it sits on a bed of stone, and it's backfilled with sand, and then you slide right over the top of it, and you kind of line it with landscaping or shrubbery. That way the fire marshal or the ambulance service or whatever, they know what that's for, but it's not being used by everybody within the community, because that's not what it would be intended for.
Wouldn't it make sense to create just a secondary entrance exit right there to spread that load out to both A and C?
I could definitely approach the developer about that. The only concern that I see right off the bat is that we would have to have I think he wants parcel B to remain gated, so we would
It would require two gates.
it would introduce another gate. And then, here's another thing. Maybe it's used as an exit only for, it's just an exit only, it's a one-way gate to allow people from parcel B to actually have another means of exiting the property. I thought about that too, and that's something that I could definitely present to the, developer.
Go back to setbacks real quick. And Maurice, do we allow roof overhangs to go within the setback, or is that a cutoff? Is it the roof overhang?
We typically like for the roof overhang to be within the setback, because we don't want, like, as Paul was mentioning, with water runoff and things like that, we want it to keep it within the setbacks. We see that oftentimes with accessory buildings, which can come within 3 feet of the side and rear property lines, but we ensure that the roof is within that 3 feet.
What I would, and maybe this could be done with just simple language, say within the document that no building wall can be any closer than 7.5 feet or something along that. I'm concerned about building walls being that close. And it's all in the language of the document. So just, I'd like some clarification on that.
But that would be amenable to you, would be 15 feet in between building walls?
I think so.
And I have a quick question. The track B, it's already semi-built out. Is there a cul-de-sac in that? So if a fire truck comes into that area, it can get out if it goes down to the end of the street?
It goes down to what appears to be a semi-cul-de-sac, but it's got parking designed around it, so it's not a cul-de-sac for a clear, I didn't design that community, so, I'm not sure exactly what their intentions were for that.
Okay. Mr. McKenzie, that'd probably be something you need to check on, I guess, just to make sure we have fire safety that can get in and out of that development, especially once it's built out.
Right. Once it's built out, that's one thing that we would need to address to make sure that it
Or
meets.
prior to it being built out, maybe, if it
Well,
doesn't.
of course, yeah, it needs to be addressed, so.
That's track.
That's the middle track.
That's B.
Yep.
They can get in it, but I don't see anywhere for them to get out.
Yeah.
Good point. Anything else, guys?
Mayor, I'd like to move the project forward, so I move that we proceed with the plan development district, and so moved.
Second.
First by Mr. Jeff Roberts, the second by Mr. Don Chapman. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? That passed unanimously on the first reading.
No, I didn't. That was the last one, right? A8.
Item number 10 is request consideration of an ordinance annex and zone the RM10 multifamily residential approximately 11 acres at Old Williamston Road and Nicholas Drive.
Oh, I thought I was gonna have to wing it for a minute. Our engineer took my information.
Co-mingling of papers. Ms. McKenzie.
Very good. Again, this is consideration of ordinance annex, approximately 11 acres. This is adjacent to the piece of property, the tract A that we were just talking about. You can see on the attached map, Willow Bend subdivision is what we're discussing. There is a recorded water and sewer service agreement, restrictive covenant for this property. So we're requesting to move forward with annexation. And again, it will be contiguous via the property next door. And once it's annexed, we can move forward with this annexation. There is a townhouse development currently under construction. If you've been by there, 66 lots or 66 townhouse units are being developed out there. This was approved in the county, so the subdivision plan was already approved in the county. So we would like to place the zoning classification of RM10 multifamily residential on this, because that will closely match what was already approved in the county. We would like to honor that. So we do recommend approval. Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of this as well at their June 2nd meeting.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Chapman?
I just have one question. What are the curb cuts on the inside of the circle? What are those going to be used for?
Good question. I can find that out.
Fire hydrants. I don't know.
Oh.
Good question.
Yeah.
Anything else, Mr. Stewart?
Councilman Chapman, I think, as you're coming in off of, Old Williamson Road, you take the first left, that first curb cut to the right. If I'm not mistaken, that's, for overflow parking, for the units. They're building several, separate drives for those townhomes out there, so if you have guests, there's additional parking throughout the subdivision.
Do they park in the back?
So this is right off the road.
Oh, okay.
Just a straight pull-in parking.
Just straight in park, and then you walk right to your unit.
So that's
Okay.
why all those is indentured.
Okay, that makes sense.
2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16 or so. Makes sense. Bigger than a fire hydrant.
Yeah, and then
Anything
some
else?
Some of them for the mailboxes to go, they're gonna have for their mailboxes to,
Okay.
4 pads out there.
Cool. Any other questions?
I make a motion to accept as presented.
First by Ms. Chapman, second by Ms. Newton. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
see this area, if all of this is approved, when it's approved, I'm sure it will be, it's going to add significantly to the population of our city, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Lots and acreage, do you have any idea of how many acres we are talking about?
I have those numbers, don't have them with me, but I do know that the properties on Clemson Boulevard, that area that we were talking about, those apartment complexes, the development that's already under construction, the single-family one, that's about 1,500 people. So
1,500.
in that area, then on Old Williamson Road, we're talking, we'll have to do some math on that, but it's an amount similar to that. So all of a sudden, you're seeing a significant increase in population. You're absolutely right.
And I would add, Dr. Thompson, that population is already here, and we're already serving that population through our services and directly, and when they're within our city, and even if there's an emergency out there right now. So now they become officially part of the city, but it's already development that's there. So
I think it's great.
yes, ma'am.
Anderson will be on the map.
Good, thank you. Good job, and I appreciate the work that the Planning Commission has done over the last few months. We have a couple items of new business, and the first item is to request consideration of a food service contract for the detention center. Mr. McEwen?
Mayor and council, from time to time, with the detention center, we evaluate, we contract out services for medical and also for food services, and so we evaluate those contracts from time to time, and usually sign an agreement with them from 1 to 3 years, and it renews and so forth. This one before you is a food service contract, and it was that time to actually go out for new pricing, look at the vendor that we have, and look for the vendor that can deliver the efficiency of the services, quality of the services, meet the nutritional standards, but also provide quality pricing to us, competitive pricing. So I want to introduce Chief Stewart and Captain Dole Carpenter to go through the details of this item.
Only thing I would add to what the city manager said, very familiar with the company. When we switched to an inmate food service provider back in 2000 was ABL Food Management. We're very happy and very satisfied with them. They were bought out within the last year and a half. And not that we're not satisfied with Summit, but when we bid this out for contract, we did check. Pickens County currently has Trinity Food Services. Not only that, but also Aiken County, and Captain Gallum is also the president of our Jail Administrators Association very familiar with him. Basically, it comes down to math. We're saving $26,208 by switching to a food provider that is the same quality and standard as what we have right now.
Thank you, Chief. The year-to-year contract?
We can continue it year by year, and on the third year, it would be rebid out.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments?
So this is gonna be a 4-year contract, just like the previous one, and both parties agree it can be extended with no further action?
Yes, sir. If we're satisfied with their service, we can continue it, and on the third year, we would rebid it.
Our previous contract with Summit, what were we paying then? Just curious.
It's a little bit more than what they bid. They came down a little bit less. You know, to give you just like some basic figures, Summit was at $1.99 per meal, and Trinity is $1.73 a meal.
Any other questions, comments?
Make a motion that we approve it.
Have first by the Mayor Pro Tem, a second by Mr. John Roberts. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Captain. Our last item of business is to request consideration of a ordinance adopting the budget for the fiscal year 2020 through 2021. Ms. McEwen.
Mayor and City Council, one of the most important things we do every year, present the budget to you and for adoption by City Council so we can fund government. We're very proud each year to present to you a very conservative, healthy budget to you that is going to protect the city's finances, provide the quality services our citizens deserve, and also anticipate future capital needs. We had a City Council work session on May the 20th, 2020, to review the budget with City Council. And from there, today, as procedure, state law provides that we have a public hearing. We have a public hearing today at 5:00 p.m. We had no comments from the public during that public hearing. And proud to present the budget to you. And I'm going to introduce Ms. Margot Martin, our Finance Director, and very proud of her team as we prepare this budget during very uncertain times, very interesting times. But we took a very conservative approach to it, and she can go over some of those details with you. Thanks so much.
Okay. So on the agenda, the City Council is required to adopt an annual balanced budget by ordinance prior to July 1. The city's budget is a policy and planning document that describes the city's priorities and plans. The purpose of a budget is to control the money, directing the funds at projects identified by council, and providing basic municipal services. So we are requesting consideration of this ordinance to adopt the budget for the year 2020 to 2021. The general fund is $31,231,737. Our enterprise funds of sewer, water, stormwater, and transit. Sewer fund is $16,686,692. Water fund is $9,417,301. Stormwater fund is $1,593,830. Transit fund is $1,271,792. And then we have our special revenue funds. Capital replacement fund is $662,466. Hospitality fee fund is $3,630,020. Parks and Recreation Fund is $2,244,647. Community Development Fund is $1,580,548. Sanitation Fund is $1,981,622. Cemetery Fund is $460,044. TIF Fund is $3,460,000. Accommodation Tax Fund is $275,000. Endowment Fund is $50,000, and Perpetual Care Fund is $40,000, for a total citywide budget of $74,585,699. I did read that for the record. The budget currently maintains a millage of 116 mills, no change in that. One mill equals $108,850. There are no increases in the business license or franchise fees. We have no reduction of services for our citizens and no health insurance premium increases for our employees. However, due to COVID, the city has reduced its business license overall revenue by $820,000, and the hospitality revenues decreased by $565,000. Hospitality revenues are at a 2013 level. The city does have a strong unrestricted fund balance of projected of 26% as of June 30, 2020. At this time, there is not a cost of living increase included in this budget. The staff would like to readdress this issue this winter after we see how the COVID crisis pans out. The budget does reflect an implementation of year 3 of the previously adopted rate path for the utilities, 6% for water and 3.5% for sewer. These rates are used to invest funds and address capital infrastructure needs of the utility funds. So the city staff is recommending approval of first reading of Ordinance 20-07, adopting the budget for the year ending June 30, 2021, for a total of $74,585,699 for all funds.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. I know we had a work session, we asked a lot of questions, but do we have any additional comments or questions?
I make a motion we accept it as it's presented.
Second.
I have a first by Mr. Chapman, a second by Dr. Thompson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously on the first reading.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for all your work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we did a lot of good things tonight. Very proud of David and his team. Proud of the council, we asked good questions, good processes in place. And, not having anything else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Before you adjourn, I do want to commend our leadership team, David, Andrew, and Marco, especially, all your hard work, all your leadership, and the good things you're doing to make Anderson, my Anderson, the greatest city in the world. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Thompson. We had a first by Mr. Newton, second by Mr. Chapman. Any further discussion? Anybody want to stay here? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Stand adjourned.